here to talk about reimagining revenue integrity to drive growth in value. Really, I want to start off with what we're going to learn today, what you can take away today, which is we're going to talk about a lot of really interesting trends in the billing compliance and revenue integrity space thus far in 2024. That's the first thing we're going to cover. We're also going to spend some time on learning best practices. We're going to learn about how some of the leading organizations in the country, also those that are part of the MDaudit community, have employed successful revenue integrity strategies to both mitigate risk while driving revenue optimization at the same time. We're also going to talk about how people, process, and technology can work together in a partnership to achieve optimal results and really help the bottom line at your organizations. And we're going to end with a very, very quick demonstration, no more than 10 minutes, where you're going to see AI, true AI in action that will help really add business value to your overall processes, automate processes, and help you have insights immediately at your fingertips to make the strategic decisions you need to. Really quickly, I'm going to say this. You will get a copy of the deck as well as the recording after the demonstration, after the session today. If there are any questions, please put them in the QA section. We're going to have about 5 minutes at the end to answer questions. You're really encouraged to ask any questions you want. There's also going to be polls taking place during this webinar. So we're, encourage you to take part in those polls. And we're also going to make sure we send you home with some really important nuggets that'll help you achieve success with your revenue integrity endeavors. One quick thing before we get going is this webinar is sponsored by MDaudit. MDaudit is a SaaS-based platform, works with 150 clients, organizations across the country, everything from very large academic medical centers down to SNFs, LTACs, community hospitals, everything in between, and also services 70 of the top IDNs in the country. And really what MDaudit does is help them achieve billing, coding, and positive revenue outcomes through AI and continuous risk monitoring. So let's get going. I'm going to introduce you first to our presenters. My name is Dana Finnegan. I'm the Director of Market Strategy at MDaudit. I've been here about 7 years. Really happy to be with you today. But a lot of our webinar is going to be driven by our CEO, Ritesh Ramesh. So Ritesh joined MDaudit as our Chief Technology Officer in 2019, but very quickly took over as the CEO in 2023. Ritesh has over 25 years of experience in the healthcare industry, including the provider side, the payer side, and a lot of experience in pharma and life sciences as well, really helping clients in many companies with their growth strategies, technology investments, and most importantly, their risk management. So Ritesh, I am going to turn it over to you right now to get us going.
Thanks, Dana. First of all, I just want to thank all of the audience members for taking an hour out of their weekday for this webinar. Good morning, good afternoon, based on the time zone you are in. As Dana said, there are a couple of key things we wanted to get out of this webinar. The first one is around trends. Everybody's interested around data and trends. So that's something that I would cover and then pass it on to Dana. And one of the things that we really wanted to talk about leading practices is because I was just reading a recent report about operating margins within the healthcare provider space. And one thing which stuck out was the difference between the organizations which are in that 50th percentile when it comes to operating margin performance and 95 percentile. The difference is almost 25% in terms of operating margins. So that kind of gave us an idea to talk about, look, what are some of the best practices to kind of push yourself towards that 75 to 80 to 90 percentile when it comes to margin performance. And that's one of the theses we had when it came to the second part of the agenda, which was more about best practices. But before we get started, this is one thing that I want to align the audience on is when we talk about revenue integrity, I think this is the best industry definition we align with. And if you really look at the audience members and your titles, it really kind of goes well with that. So for us, revenue integrity has three ingredients or components. One is optimal reimbursement in terms of how do you get paid in a timely manner and make sure that you get paid the right amount, and doing so in a very compliant way. And then the third main component is how all of this is going to come together in a very cost-effective way. So those three are the components when we talk about revenue integrity. And what I'm excited about is if you look at the profile of the audience, many of you come from compliance, many of you come from rev cycle, many of you come from CDI and coding. And this is a perfect trifecta of framework that we're going to talk about in terms of how to really double down on all those three components so that we can drive an optimal outcome for the overall organization. So next slide, Dana. So coming into this year, we actually released a benchmarking report in November of 2023, and we do that every year. We look at the data in 23, we try to forecast the trends for 24, and what's really interesting is before this webinar, I went back and looked at, what changed between November and let's say June of this year. There are many things which we forecasted, which is still true. The first one is if you really look at the volumes and surgeries, they're coming back strong. Healthcare no longer has a demand problem. And that's seen in every single industry report where the volumes are coming up healthy, which is a great news. But at the same time, there are a couple of trends which we see on the rev side. Number one is ever since we have published these reports for the last 4 years, we see payer issues toggling between commercial and Medicare and commercial and Medicare. And one thing you will see in the data very, very clearly is Medicare is the theme when it comes to reimbursement issues, where there are less dollars per claim being reimbursed. It's taking more time to reimburse the claim, and more claims are being denied. So the headline for the first half of the year on the payer space is definitely Medicare. We are hearing from our customers when it comes to external payer audits, the volumes have quadrupled. We can see that in our own data, where for the first half, almost like the dollars audited by commercial payers and RACs and MACs, those are almost 60% increase when we look at first half of last year, first half of this year. And what's more interesting is we are hearing from a lot of customers that this is actually done on a prepayment basis. So no longer this is a clawback scenario. They are actually holding claims and questioning services before they can make the payment. So the external payer audit volumes are on the rise. You all have heard a lot about Medicare Advantage plans and HCCs. They continue to be under heavy scrutiny for risk adjustment issues, both on the Medicare side, and many of the commercial plans are actually spinning off those businesses because they're struggling with compliance issues. And many of the health systems are actually assessing what is their relationship with Medicare Advantage plans when it comes to servicing patients, because it's putting more and more burden on them to administer those claims and make sure they're getting paid well in advance. A couple of other points is we see this often. Payers are investing in a lot of AI, and we really think that is driving in their behavior when it comes to adjudication, and now they're trying to really get upstream when it comes to payment, where they're questioning things before even they can pay. And that is something which we see in some of the quarterly calls, some of the leaders are doing in the payer space, where there's a lot of money being driven into AI. And in many cases, they are in the news for bad things, and in many cases, they're using it for efficiencies. And then last but not least, every one of us know that the Change Healthcare issue caused a major disruption in Q1 of 24. And when I read industry reports in March and April on margins and payments, it doesn't surprise me that you can see some blips, because many of the systems are really trying to figure out how to mitigate the impact from it. So all in all, going into 24, two things: demands heavy, volumes are great, but then it's more imperative for healthcare organizations to really figure out how to drive efficiency into their model so that they can drive operating performance. And we believe that that's where using people, process, technology to drive a transformation would be very useful going into this year. Next slide. So the first trend, which is very interesting, is if we looked at the average denied dollars per claim, what's very clear from the data point in the first of 24 is those average denied dollars per claim continues to increase. And if you really look at the top, the first half, you see that 7%, 2.7, and 19.1%. Those increases are across all payers, and it's very clear that the hospital inpatient segment is almost seeing a 19% increase of average denied dollars per claim. If you really break it down into Medicare and commercial, you can clearly see what's driving that 19% when it comes to inpatient, which is clearly Medicare. And in terms of commercial segment, the focus continues to be on the outpatient side, where there are more volumes. I think from industry reports, there's almost 15 to 20% of surge of volumes on the outpatient side. So the commercial payers are continuing to double click on the outpatient segment, where you have more profitable claims and services sit, and those are the margin drivers. So it's important to kind of take a look at that average denied dollar per claim from those two dimensions in terms of how is Medicare behaving when it comes to denying payments, and how is commercial segment behaving when it comes to denying payments. And there's a stark difference in terms of the areas that they're focused on. So that's the first trend. So the denial issues are not getting anything better. It's actually getting even more worse. In terms of denial, trend two, one of the key metrics which we track is initial response times. I talk to many leaders in the industry, and still sometimes I get surprised when I hear somebody from the other side who say that I ask them like, hey, do you know that what's your initial response times? Do you see lag? Some people say, look, yeah, who cares, because we will eventually get paid. But I do think this year, eventually getting paid is not an issue. When do you get paid is the most important issue, because that really drives your cash flow. It kind of drives your margins. And again, what you see here is when you really take a look at the initial response times from the payers, we are seeing an increase, could be anywhere between 1 to 3 days. But then when we really break it down between Medicare and commercial segment, we could see again the delays for the Medicare segment across professional, outpatient, and inpatient have increased by anywhere between 4 to 9 days. And this is critical, right? Just because of the fact we are not talking about the final response. We're talking about when you submit a claim, when are they initially responding to you in terms of whether the claim is being denied or paid or partially paid. So again, a good data point to focus on the Medicare segment and track your initial response times to kind of understand the root causes of whether this is a documentation issue, it's a billing issue, or a coding issue, so that you can preempt them before it goes out of the door, so that your adjudication cycles are not getting longer, and that's causing issues with your operating margins and payments. And then this is the last trend before we do a survey and pass it on to Dana. If you really look at the denial rates across inpatient and outpatient, what's fascinating to see is they're still more than 20%. And we kind of looked at both outpatient and inpatient. Outpatient is almost 21%, and inpatient is almost 27% still from the start of this year. And if you really break down the outpatient versus inpatient at the bottom, where things are getting scrutinized on the outpatient side or things which probably you have already heard of, the observation care, implants, radiology, ED visits, There was a big article around the two-midnight rule, kind of published by CMS, where there were a lot of opinions and lack of clarity. And then on the inpatient side, no surprises there. Again, the MCCs and the CCs, the sepsis and the infectious diseases. So the DRGs remind what we saw sometime last year, but I think you can see the clear codes which are driving these denial rates, and most of them are due to documentation issues, medical necessity, and in many cases, whether they're questioning the protocols, the clinical protocols, of whether the service was really needed. So in summary, I think you can see the three trends. The first one was more around basically the initial response times, denial rates, and the average dollar per denied claim. And all of that is really trending up. And then based on how your payer mix looks like, the focus, of course, is on the Medicare segment. And on the commercial side, they're double clicking on your mostly high margin and profitable services. With that, Joy, can we serve up the first survey question, and then we can pass it on to Dana?
And folks, we'll get going as soon as you're done answering that poll.
This is great. So one of the reasons that we were really interested in this question is with the thesis that revenue integrity is a cross-functional function. And I think the poll says that 70% of the people replied saying that all these functions work together when it comes to the revenue integrity agenda, which is great to see. Dana, I'll pass it to you.
Sure. Okay, folks. So we're going to start with trend 4. We had mentioned this a little bit before, but I want to dive in a little bit deeper. So trend number 4 is external payer audits have doubled in Q1 of 2024 versus the same period last year, Q1 2023. So we've seen a huge influx of external payer audits. Now, on the left-hand side, you're going to see, and if you can't see this again, you're going to be getting the deck, almost 99% of those external audits are being focused on hospital billing, both facility inpatient, facility outpatient. So a lot of external audits, much of that focus on the facility inpatient and outpatient side of the fence. On the right-hand side here, you're going to see that commercial payers in the RAC drove the majority of those external audits. So when we add up the two, about 70% of that, almost a little over 70% of that was via commercial payers and the RAC with that additional scrutiny. Now, we had promised some nuggets you could take home here. So there are top 5 DRGs that are being highly scrutinized. And you can see those are coming for septicemia, musculoskeletal, back and neck procedures, renal treatments. These are some of the top DRGs that are being targeted for external audits. Now, on top of that, as Ritesh had said, when these are submitted with CCs and MCCs and you have a very sicker patient population, there'll be even more additional scrutiny on those DRGs. And as we had mentioned before, 99% of that scrutiny is coming for requests of, is it meeting medical necessity? Prove that the treatment you provided is meets medical necessity. Also, a lot of folks getting a lot of requests for information needed, patient records needed, and even a lot of scrutiny about where the services were performed. So again, a lot of almost an alphabet soup on the upper right-hand corner there of who's sending you these letters, and a lot of scrutiny there. So expect that to continue. We are going to show you later on how technology and AI can help you optimize your response times back to these pesky payer audits. I'm going to move on to another trend here, trend number 5. I want to spend a little bit of time here because it's a really hot topic about who are the successful organizations What traits do they have when they are reimagining revenue integrity and in driving positive business outcomes? I think as you're looking at this, one thing I'd ask yourself is, give yourself a grade on how you're doing. Are you doing excellent? Are you doing okay? Could you do better? So really, we're going to go across the five. And again, some of this will seem like it is 101 type of suggestions, but what we're finding is a lot of organizations will have a couple of these or three of these, but not all of them together. And you really need all five to be very successful in driving outcomes in revenue integrity. The first one is really needing to break down silos. So Ritesh had talked about, coding and clinical departments and revenue integrity and revenue cycle and so on. Everybody really needs to be able to work together and break down those historical departmental silos, because you really want to form, and you'll hear this a lot today, a unified front when responding to payers, denials, external audits. If your organization can form a united front, you're a much stronger being to have to deal with. The second one is really setting up a formal revenue integrity program. So this is where you can have, steering committees of cross-functional leaders and stakeholders in those departments we just talked about, meeting on a regular basis. A lot of folks, to get this going, will start it monthly to get around a table and talk about what they're seeing. And then it can move to a quarterly cadence. But really, you really need to get all of those minds in the same room, not only to break down silos, but also to share insights with one another about what they're seeing in their different departments and what they're living and breathing in their daily lives. The third one is incredibly important. So it's leveraging data, but it's not leveraging data in a very manual way. We want you to be able to have daily insights into your, what are my top denials? Who are my providers that are at risk? Who are my coders that are at risk for not coding accurately and with the highest amount of integrity? Where are my external audits coming from? So there's a lot of data coming into your organization, but you want to remove all bias from that, all ego from that, and just use the data and the analytics and AI at your fingertips to give you the insights you need to drive your programs going forward and to make those strategic and financial decisions you need to. The fourth one is, before we even, kind of really get deep into things, you want to define success metrics. I mean, we all know these things: days in AR, first pass pay rates, DNFB. Those are some of the basic ones, but you really also want to be able to define other KPIs that mean something to your organization. For example, what should my providers passing rate be? What should my coders passing rate be? Should it be over 90%? Should it be 95%? Things like, how fast am I responding to external audits? Is it within the time frame? How much am I retaining? How much am I refunding? You want to be able to have these statistics and KPIs at your fingertips and be able to measure them almost on a weekly basis. So you're making sure that you're doing the right things to move the program going forward. And the fifth one, although it seems kind of, I'll say even fluffy, is keep an open mind, because, a lot of us have been doing things the same way for many years. I'm one of them. And sometimes I can go into a meeting and kind of think everything I'm doing is right. I'm contributing appropriately. But if we just go in with an open mind and hear others' ways of doing things, we can really, again, form that united front and do some really great things. So again, a lot of these are things that some of us are doing, but we're not doing all of them together. And we need to have all five of them working on full cylinder to really have a very successful revenue integrity program. And we're going to show you again, how we can help you bring some of this together and operate at a very high level. Let's go on to leveraging AI. So we're all hearing about AI. You can see on the right-hand side, we have seen huge investments, not only by payers, but healthcare organizations and providers investing in AI so they can stay ahead of trends that could be hurting them. So AI helping them not only identify risk, but also help them immediately solve that risk to maximize reimbursement. And again, all at the same time, having operational efficiencies. Now, I want to say this right off the bat. AI is not just hype. We see it every day in our community as really helping people drive positive business outcomes. I'll give you an example of AI in the MDaudit community. We saw last year in 2023 that there was a 33% increase, 33% increase in the number of audits that were done. These are provider audits, coder audits, auditing payer trends, auditing who's sending you ADRs. All of this increased 33%, while at the same time, staffing went down 10% in our community. So huge bandwidth issues, but also being able to still really exceed auditing goals and identify risk to really mitigate it. So what you're seeing with all of these little dots around that AI in the middle is all of those things can be help you vet out through AI. So for example, AI can run benchmarking and analytics to show you where your underpayments are happening, where your overpayments are happening. It can even help you predict payer behavior on what's going to be denied. So I kind of want you to take a look at that and ask yourself, where is my organization employing AI in these areas? Now, it doesn't have to be all of these areas, but you want AI and analytics to help you. Again, it's not going to solve everything. MDaudit truly believes that AI should be less artificial and actually more augmented, meaning people like yourselves and the AI working together to solve huge business issues. And I can tell you from just what I've seen in our community, AI really helping folks mitigate risk and maximize revenues and help bolstering bottom lines. So let's move into our next insight. So this here, there's a lot on this slide, but I'm going to ask you to follow your eyes going from the bottom to the top, and I'm going to explain the different sections to you. So what we have here is really what is the perfect, if you can wave a magic wand and find the perfect software platform to help you reimagine revenue integrity, what do those end-to-end components look like? So really, we're going to start at the bottom, and you're seeing a bunch of compliance and revenue integrity teams and stakeholders. So CDI, coding, billing, revenue management, and payer management. And there's others along that continuum. But any worth its salt platform is going to help those teams break down silos and work cross-departmentally, help those teams. It's going to help them engender healthy dialogue between all of those constituencies you see at the bottom. So the glue is not only those subject matter experts you see at the bottom, but the platform helping them break down silos and work together. And how does the platform, you say, how does the platform help them do that? Well, the modern revenue integrity platform has a unified data foundation. What that really means is the ability for that platform to ingest on a daily basis with no manual efforts from you, claims data, remittance data, denials data, pre-bill data, external audit data, internal audit data, all take that in on a daily basis, process it through AI, and do what we call CRM, continuous risk monitoring on all of that data. And what it will do is then show you the anomalies that need to be tackled first. So again, the AI is doing its job, but it's then sending it to you as the person, that augmented relationship to help you then go out and drive positive outcomes. And you can see when that's working perfectly, or as good as it can, let's say, nothing's perfect, is when the people, process, and technology are working together, you're capturing revenues. These are the business outcomes. We've seen folks absolutely increase their revenue capture, at the same time mitigating risk. So you're not going to be subject to clawbacks, less external audits, less denials. We're seeing huge workforce productivity. Like I said, we saw our audits go up 33% with workforce FTEs going down significantly. So it's automating and making you very productive and efficient. And of course, payer management. It's allowing you to manage your payers and your contracts and relationships as opposed to them managing you. And at the very least, helping you and the payer get on the same page. And what I didn't go over was number 3 on the right-hand side. It's a given, but any modern revenue integrity platform is going to be highly secure, high trust certified, and where APIs can be exchanged in a very safe manner. So a lot on this slide, but I would ask you to, again, take this home and take a look at it and say, where do we fall? Is this something we are able to do? And if not, look into it, because it is obviously helping with a lot of positive business outcomes. And I would also say any modern revenue integrity platform should allow you to really drive your process, should drive the technology, meaning you shouldn't have to use a platform that makes you change everything you're doing right now, because you are subject matter experts in flow and understanding your payers and other things. So that technology should be able to wrap itself around your process. Now, again, technology should be configurable to a certain degree out of the box. But when you get it, you should be able to put your tweaks and nuances to that revenue integrity platform. So whenever you're out researching and trying to automate more, take a look at this foundation. It's a really great guide into how to employ a really successful platform. To move on to our next piece, which is our demonstration. So folks, just to kind of let you know, we're not going to burden you too much with a long demonstration. It's going to be about 10 minutes, and then we are going to then go into some key takeaways as well as your questions, because we see a bunch of questions coming in as we speak. So I have my platform up right now, and we're going to go through 3 examples of automation, analytics, and pure AI, augmented AI in action to show you how to achieve some very positive business outcomes. So the first place I'm going to go is to this dollar sign. This is part of our platform that really helps you understand root causes of denials immediately. So what we're showing here up the top, and I'm just going to let that load, is a bunch of different insights, like what do my coding denials look like over time? What do my patient access denials look like? Compliance denials? Is my CMI tracking? Now, it's really important to have a platform that can help you see those spikes and lulls with your denial activity. But one of the things we don't want people doing is when you see a spike like this, you want to investigate it, but most folks are spending hours and weeks and days, whatever it may be. It's an inordinate amount of time trying to figure out why this spike has happened. Well, we're going to run AI right now through what we call a change analysis, and I want you to see what happens. Now, again, technology is going to give me a lot of insights, but I am going to take those insights to do corrective action within the organization. So again, remember that symbiotic relationship. So I'm going to run that change analysis, and you can see it's executing some AI, and it's finding me why that spike has taken place. And that happened in just a few seconds. So you can see here, it's telling me I almost had an 80% increase in my coding-related denials in 1 month. But now it's telling me the stuff in blue is what caused that significant change. I can see the first reason was a lot of denials due to medical necessity. The payer didn't like that. It didn't meet medical necessity. My second one is my diagnoses I used were invalid. It's a really great understanding of why my denials spiked for coding. I can go into the account number. I don't want to look through 18,000 values. I don't have the time to do that. So it's telling me this account here, followed by these were the ones that had the biggest denial dollars attached to them. I'm obviously going to want to know the payer. So I click payer, and it tells me that these are the top 2 payers that are denying me in this month. I may also want to know facilities. Many of you have a host of tax ID numbers, 30, 40 of them up to some points. And I can see it's these 2 facilities. Now, I should also be able to ask the AI certain things like, who are the attending providers on those cases? And I'm just going to ask, and it's going to tell me that the attending providers being denied most are these folks. I'm going to go back to one more thing here, my reasons. Now, if I want to come in and say, wow, medical necessity, what were the services? And I'm just going to put in DRG. What DRG names were being kicked out for medical necessity? And I can see it right here. So again, we won't go into this in great detail. We'll always, if you want to see more, you can always come to us. But what we wanted you to show you here was the ability to really get from here and use AI, augmented intelligence, a partnership between yourself and the technology to understand immediately why these are denying, so you can have much more fruitful efforts in your appeals when you send that back to the payer. Really mitigate risk, maximize revenue. Another thing I'm going to show from this same view is what we call conversational AI. So many of you will tell me when I'm out there, I have to request stuff from report writers. I have to go to a business analyst. I don't know Tableau. Well, you should be able to ask questions in plain English and have it return the data to you immediately. I'm not going to have you watch me type here, but I'm going to place this in here. And it's saying what facilities had the highest amount of denials last year. Something I typed in, but it's remembering what I typed in. You can see I even spelled denials wrong. Doesn't matter. I didn't have to learn this query that you see right here. I just asked it in plain English, and conversational AI returned this to me. It's showing my facilities ranked by the ones having the highest amount of denials for med necessity. And I can see here, MDaudit health system, #1. And then from here, I can drill down and say, okay, but what was the payer? What payer at that facility dinged me the most? And it will then bring me down to that level. I can drill down to account number, medical record number, whatever I want. I'm 100% self-sufficient with my data, again, through that relationship, that augmented relationship with the AI. You can also see here, I can press that green thumbs up saying, hey, AI, you did a good job. Or I can put the thumbs down and say, it wasn't exactly what I was looking for. And I can have another conversation with the technology and refine the search. So again, awesome insights from the technology, but always working together with you. One last thing I'm going to show here, and then we're going to get into questions and takeaways, is we are seeing one of the most alarming patterns that Ritesh and I talked about was that influx of ADRs, demand letters. They're showing up at your back door in a very fast pace, and you're also dealing with a million other things. So one quick thing we're going to show you is I have a demand letter on my desktop. It's de-identified. There's no data PHI in here, but it's about 7 or 8 pages long with a multitude of accounts on it. And when you guys receive these, the first thing I'm hearing is that you're spending just an inordinate amount of time looking at that letter and manually having to strip off all of the information on it, enter it into your system, using spreadsheets, and everything's in disparate systems. Right away, you're setting up failure to not respond on time to the requester. So I'm going to show you one piece of AI in our system that can help you really just disregard all of that manual effort that you're doing. So I'm going to go and say this will work on the hospital side and the pro fee side exactly the same. I'm just going to say it's a hospital claim type, but I can go in and scan that letter. If I go in and find that letter, and there's my demand letter right there, and hit scan, this is AI and optical character recognition working together with you. So I'm going to hit scan. It's reading that PDF that was on my desktop, and it's pulling off, you can see in just a second, all of the important attributes from that letter. Subscriber ID, patient name, last name, all of that immediately. No manual entry. Now, the second step I'm going to do is I'm going to search cases. That's where it can take what it got off of that letter. The AI can look at that and then go into the database and find all of the claims and remittance information that's needed for those accounts. So in just a few clicks, I think it was 2 clicks actually, it's added everything I need, everything from the letter and everything relating to the claims and remits like diagnoses, CPTs, DRGs. Once I add those cases or those accounts, again, these are the accounts being scrutinized in this case by the external requester. You can see here, I'm very nicely in the initial submission round with the rack, and it's loaded all of this information. patient information, as well as here's your total charges. And more importantly, here's your payment amount. That's the payments that are at risk. You could go in and sort these and make strategic financial decisions on what to appeal and what not to appeal, just based on this information right at your fingertips. So we're going to stop there, but what we wanted you to take from that was that ability to scan the letter is another use of AI, but it's working with you at the same time to really automate a very difficult process that many of you are doing manually right now. So folks, that was just a few use cases of how AI can work with you to make your lives a lot easier, buy you time that you need to do other important tasks, and in this case, retain more money than you have to refund back to this external requester. So what we're going to do right now, folks, and of course, if you wanted to see any more of this, you can contact us offline. But what I'm going to do is shut down our demonstration right now, and I'm going to pull up our deck again and let Ritesh speak to some of our final takeaways before we get to our question section. Ritesh?
Thanks, Dana. Joy, I think we had two other survey questions, so we just wanted to get done with those and then go to the key takeaways. So the audience can answer these two questions. Okay, that's great. So we wanted to ask, how often does the cross-functional committee meet as a cadence? Looks like it's weekly and monthly. That's great. That's as real time as it gets. Okay, so it looks like weekly and monthly. And this is the last one where we wanted to really kind of have your assessment on whether you have real-time insights on compliance and revenue risks in your organization. Okay. That's good to see. So it looks like 50% of them said no, and almost 50% of them said yes. So it's great to see a lot of you using some of these tools to drive value, and that's great to see. Thanks for taking the survey. With that, I think where we wanted to go was to really kind of wrap all this up in terms of the session, in terms of what the key takeaways are. The first thing was we really wanted to double down and talk about the people and the process, because again, all the technology, data, tools are great, but at the end of the day, if people are not working together, you won't have a coherent strategy. So the first thing is double down on the cross-functional collaboration across the different functions: billing, compliance, coding, CDI, and rev cycle. And that is more of a change management function to make sure that you have a robust revenue integrity program. And once you have a committee, then you can align on a common set of metrics and what does good look like. We see a lot of our customers basically embark on a technology transformation and then realize that they don't have the structure and the metrics to drive the execution. So that's a reason that you see that 1 and 2 as the key foundation. Even if you're investing in a powerful technology, that's going to be the key. The third one is things are really changing fast. And as you can see from Dana's demo, the one thing we wanted to show those 3 use cases is there is a lot of noise in the industry around AI, but there are a lot of practical applications of how humans and AI can work together to drive productivity. And those are some of the nuggets we wanted to kind of show that it's not just theory. People are using it in practice. They're driving value. And I think the key thing is to have an open mind and make sure that that you have a data-driven platform which provides you with benchmarking and insights that you can use to make some decisions. And last but not least, even if you have all the data and insights, the key focus is on corrective actions, which is, I know a lot of folks are focused on the back end, which is denials management, but what are the insights that are gleaned from your internal audits, from your external audits, and how you can really push it more upstream, be it your billing operations, be it your coding operations, so that some of these insights can be applied at the source of origin and fixed so that it doesn't really flow downstream, because we really believe that uh, there's a lot of focus on denials management and teams kind of wanting to get paid, but really connecting the dots between billing, coding, and denials is basically the holy grail. And once you add the insights to connect those three, then the question is, how are you going to have processes which can feed those actions upstream and downstream to do it? So those are the 5 key takeaways which we really add for the webinar. Hope this session was very useful, because we want to hit trends. We wanted to talk about tech transformation, and then really kind of finish it with showing something in practice, so that we don't put a bunch of things in the slide and just talk through it. So hopefully this was useful. Are there any questions? We're happy to open up the line and have people ask us any questions.
Yes. Yeah, Ritesh, we've got a bunch of questions. We'll try to get through as many. The first one I'm going to toss out to you is someone asking, when adopting AI into our revenue integrity program, what is your advice in ensuring its credibility and successful deployment?
Great question. So I think the first thing I would say is the challenges within the space is accuracy and precision, which is going to go back to how clean is your data. If you have bad data going into any technology, whether it's AI or not, you're going to get bad outcomes. So the focus is on building a good foundational data layer where we have very clear definitions of what each things mean. And then more importantly, as Dana showed, let's assume that even if that engine is 60% accurate or 50% accurate, the question is, does the user have any input in real time to talk to the engine and train it in real time? To me, those are the 2 critical ingredients. Is, do you have good quality of data, number 1, and number 2 is, does the technology allow you to provide input on the fly so that it can get more and more and more better? And to be honest with you, I'll tell you a very personal anecdote. When we really built the external payer audit engine, my expectation coming into this was, hey, let it scan the letters and let it be at least 25% accurate, because people are basically taking these 60, 70 pages and trying to spend their time keying in. And what we saw in a very short amount of time, in 6 months, is as we kind of trained the model and got user input in real time, that 25% accuracy is somewhere now around 92 to 94%. So those are the 2 things that I would call out when it comes to credibility. Is, you're not going to get that 100% on the first shot, but I think the training just moves it very fast, as long as there is a lot of input as you deal with the data.
All right. Thank you, Ritesh. I'm going to ask you another question now. It is, any insights on how I can reduce the number of ADRs I am receiving?
Yeah. So great question. I think one strategy which we have been recommending to customers is to be proactive. One approach could be, hey, I'm receiving these ADRs. I'm going to use technology to process them, submit documentation, and get paid. But the question is, are you learning something from your last 6 to 12 months worth of external audits? What are some of the insights that you can really learn from your external audit patterns? And how can you really implement them into your internal auditing programs? So if you do that, then it's almost like you're 3 steps ahead in terms of areas, number 1, where you're being historically targeted. And then the second thing, which is to really look for benchmarking capabilities. There are platforms like ours which provide that benchmarking capability. And the whole idea is to kind of learn from the insights so that you can learn about your historical situation, number 1. You can learn from what's happening in the market. and then take it back to your internal compliance program so that you can be 3-4 steps ahead. And I think those are the two practical ways of being proactive versus reactive in terms of the ADR letters.
Okay, great. I'm going to ask a third question. Are you confident? It's kind of a loaded question, Ritesh. So it's a good question. Are you confident AI and analytics can truly predict denial activity before submission?
I mean, let me use the word probability, and I think the real answer to this is it's not a yes or a no. But I think my honest answer is any technology which comes and says that, look, I can really predict the denials, and it's a yes or a no. It's not really practical. So I do believe in anything which can basically take multiple sets of inputs. Could be at historical denials, could be at external audits, could be what's happening in the industry, and then pretty much say that the probability of risk for the service line and for the specific set of claims is 95% to be denied by this payer versus 5% denied by this payer. So I think if you can get there where you can look at that, what you'll find out is across millions and millions of claims across multiple service lines, you'll be left with probably 20% of your claims that are driving 80% of your margin impact. And that's pretty much the answer to that is use analytics to predict the probability of a claim being denied versus treating that as it's a yes or a no, because I don't think anybody can give you a yes or a no.
Yeah, and it's a great, I think a great answer just because it's what we're going back to and saying technology doesn't do everything and it's not going to solve every problem, but it can certainly help with probability. So I have a couple left, Ritesh. The first one, and we may need to reach out to this person for a little bit more information, but it says, can you run this separately by client? I'm going to, if you want to answer that, Ritesh, go ahead.
Yeah, the answer is yes.
Okay, great. And the last one is, can you upload your own customized letter to identify claims quickly through the AI tool? That's the last question we have right now.
The answer is also yes. And I think the good news there is, so anything can be uploaded as a letter, and the beauty of that is the letter is unstructured because we know that different payers and racks and max have their own format. And what you will see is when you upload that first format, probably it's 50-60% accurate, and then you quickly train it, and then it becomes 95% accurate. So the answer is absolutely yes. Any kind of letters of any format can be uploaded.
Great. That's great to know. So folks, we are at 12:55. We always like to give you about 5 minutes back so you can get to your next meeting. We know you're back to back, but we really appreciate you joining us today. Again, if you take anything away, people, process, and technology forming, and you're seeing a closing poll as well, if you wouldn't mind taking part in that, but people, process, and technology working together every day to optimize outcomes, business outcomes, mitigate risk, and maximize revenue optimization. Ritesh, any closing words before we go?
No, thanks again to the audience to join this webinar, and we look forward talking about another exciting topic very soon.